Let me ask you something that might feel uncomfortable. If someone that you loved told you they were ready to end their life, not because they were depressed, but because they were dying, what would you do? Would you fight them? Beg them to stay? Or would you listen? We don't talk about this enough, and yet it happens every single day. There are people choosing how they die just as carefully as others choose how they live. And two of the most talked about choices are VSED, which is voluntarily stopping eating and drinking, and MAID, which is medical assistance in dying. One is legal everywhere, and one is legal only in a handful of states. And both raise huge questions, ethically, emotionally, and spiritually. And my job today is not to convince you of one way or the other. It is to walk you through what they actually mean and how families can navigate them without tearing each other apart. So let's start with VSED, which is voluntarily stopping eating and drinking. This is when someone, usually facing illness or frailty, decides, you know what, I'm done. I am ready. They stop taking in food and fluids until their body naturally shuts down. It sounds stark, doesn't it? But here's the important part. It's completely legal. Everywhere. If someone chooses this path, yes, they are eligible for hospice care. That means that they get access to medications to manage their discomfort, support from a hospice team, and guidance for both the patient and their family. And I've seen it play out in so many ways. People come to this decision through different walks of life. I had a 95-year-old man, sharp as ever, and he said, you know what, Beth, I lived a full life. Everyone around me is dead, and I'm ready to go. He wasn't in a medical crisis. He was simply done. And then there was a 59-year-old man who was newly diagnosed with a disease that would strip away his independence and his memory. And he told me that he said, I want to leave while I still know who I am. Two very different stories. Two very different ages. Same choice. VSED. Now, families often struggle because while hospice does step in, loved ones find it hard to watch. I mean, it could take days to weeks. It feels very unfamiliar. It changes everything that we've been taught about food, care, and love. And maybe that's what you feel rising inside you right now. The resistance, the questions. Could I watch someone do this? Wouldn't I try to stop them? Notice it. Don't push it away. Because whatever your answer is, it's already true for you, and it's okay. But I'm going to share with you what I learned. By the time someone has chosen VSED, they have already thought about it far more than anyone else around them. This isn't an impulsive decision. It's not selfish. It's a decision that they've wrestled with within them, in silence, before it's even been spoken out loud. And our role, if we are invited in, isn't to judge. It's to simply listen and stay and support. So let's talk about MAID, which is medical assistance in dying, which is also known as death with dignity. And unlike VSED, this is not legal everywhere. Right now, it's authorized in California, Colorado, Hawaii, Maine, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Vermont, Washington, Washington, D.C., and now Delaware. And here's what it looks like. They must have a terminal illness, which means the person must have a prognosis of 6 months or less to live. They must show mental competency, which means they must be capable of making their own medical decisions. This is a voluntary request. The request must come directly from the individual, not from family, not from doctors. This is an informed consent. They must be fully informed about the process, the options, and the consequences, and then give clear consent. They do have residency requirements in some states. They must live in the state where MAID is legal. You can only take the medication in states where MAID is legal. I should clarify that. But some of them have waiting periods. In some states, there are mandatory waiting periods between the first request and receiving the prescription. Now, every state has slight variations. Like California, you must have residency, you must be 18 or older, and you must have a 6-month prognosis. Oregon, which is one of the first to legalize it, still has safeguards, but there are slightly different steps involved. And Washington is very similar to California, but they have mandatory waiting periods. And here's something important to remember. Compassion and Choices, which is one of the leading organizations on this, is clear that MAID is not assisted suicide, and it's not euthanasia. I have spoken with people who have found enormous peace in making this decision and taking this option. One patient gathered family. They shared stories, they said their goodbyes, and then she was able to pass quietly at home on her own terms. And then there were others, countless others, that got the medication and then did not take it. That's actually more common than you would think. And still there are others that are devastated to learn that it's not available in their state. I had one woman tell me, "I feel trapped in my own body. I want to choose dignity, but I'm not allowed to." She did end up choosing VSED instead, but she would have chosen MAID if that was available. And maybe you're hearing this and you're thinking, "Oh, that's so beautiful." Or maybe you're thinking, "That's wrong." Both reactions are real and valid, and both deserve space. But whether we approve of it or not, MAID is happening quietly, legally in those states, and more openly in other places like Canada or where laws are broader. And that brings us back to the question I asked earlier. Would you support them or resist them? I want you to hold that thought for a minute. So what's the difference between MAID and VSED? Both are patient-initiated. Both are about autonomy and dignity and choice. Both require insane amounts of courage, conversations, and family support. But VSED is slower. VSED can take days or weeks. Hospice can step in with medications, comfort measures, and support, but it can definitely take some time. MAID is fast. Once the prescription is taken, death usually occurs within hours, and it's very peaceful. VSED requires no special legal approval, but MAID requires strict eligibility and documentation and safeguards. They're very different paths, but the same desire: to leave this world on one's own terms. And maybe you can already feel the paradox here, because while both give control to the patient, both also challenge families to surrender control. And surrender is never easy. When someone chooses VSED or MAID, families often say things like, "Don't do this, stay with us longer, it's selfish." And here's the truth. When someone has carried this choice inside, they've already carried the weight of it far longer than you already know. When we resist, we are not protecting them or making them pause and think about it. What we're doing is we're actually adding our fear to their burden. Compassion means presence without pressure, listening without fixing, being willing to sit in the discomfort of love without control. And maybe that's the hardest part of it all. So let's return back to that question. Would you support your loved one if they chose VSED or MAID? Or would you resist? There is no universal right or wrong answer. There's only your answer. But know this, that your presence matters more than your opinion. Now, if this conversation has sparked something inside of you, and you feel called to do this work, to walk with others through choices like this, that's what death doulas do. We hold space, We normalize the hard questions and hard conversations. We walk people home with compassion and clarity. And that's why I created the course, Become a Death Doula, the training that I wish I had when I was going through mine. So you can explore it in the description. But before you click away, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Would you support someone in choosing VSED or MAID? Why? Or why not? Leave a comment, because I feel like this is a conversation worth having. And if you're undecided, drop your favorite emoji. All right, until next time, be good to yourself.